Welcome to Happy Hour Holidaze, your go-to podcast for business, entrepreneurship, and life stories. I'm your co-host every single week, Manny Febre. We got Sean Febre, my co-host. And in studio today, we got Brittany Galvin, social influencer, does it all. She's a hustler, a mega hustler. And, we're looking at what's going on in California now with the wildfire and everything that they're about to go through. And we in Florida went through the hurricanes. Not only Florida, but many other states went through this 2 hurricanes that were very vicious. And you really don't know how to start once that hurricane has hit your house. And Brittany went through the whole process, and she's going to fill in, kind of give us a little tips and tricks or secrets on how to really battle these insurance companies and get what you deserve. So Brittany, how did that whole situation come down to you having to really battle the insurance companies? Or let's just start from where you would think would be the most helpful for an inexperienced homeowner who, feels like, oh, I have insurance, everything's going to be okay. Well, it's not that easy.
Yeah. And thanks for having me, guys. Again,
yeah, absolutely.
Nice to be back. So, and unfortunate circumstances, but, I guess we could just start from the fact that we talked about I'm born and raised here, have a home. I've always had insurance. It was my husband's. You guys know my husband. It was his dream to live on the water. So we purchased this home, and of course we pay a significant amount for flood insurance in addition to homeowners insurance. So when you live anywhere in a flood zone, our zone was A, which is the worst you can get in Florida. You have to pay a significant amount because should you ever have something, a hurricane or a storm surge, which is the lesser of the two, that what you think, you kind of sit back and you're like, okay, I have homeowners and flood. I pay a ridiculous amount, but if anything ever happens, everything here is covered. And I'm unfortunately learning that it's not that cut and dry and it's not that easy.
And I think the crazy thing too, Britt, is that a lot of people didn't expect Helene to have any effects on us, really, because it was so far away.
Yeah.
And that one was the one that actually did the most damage to everybody.
Yeah, Helene brought in my neighborhood alone, there are 960 homes. And we live in the Bay. So people who are watching this that aren't in Tampa, you have, everyone thinks it's just the coast, Clearwater, Treasure Island, St. Pete. But realistically, if you have little bays, if you have little avenues that go into
intercoastal.
Yeah, intercoastals. Mm-hmm. That's what the word I'm looking for. The water goes in there and has nowhere to go. At least, I just told you not to say at least. Before we started this, I just told him not to say at least. But at least on the coast, the water, it's the waves and you've got titles and this and that, but the water doesn't get stuck. When it goes into the intercoastals and you've got just wind and hurricane pushing on it, that water literally has nowhere to go but up. So for us, our neighborhood, the 960 homes, every single one of them flooded. The least amount was 6 inches, and that was in the very center of the neighborhood. That was in what they call New Baycrest. So they were built 30 years after our home. I have a 5.1 elevation. I think legally now to build a house, it has to be 12 feet.
Yeah, 12.
So I was way under what the legal amount and coded amount was. Sorry, I keep hitting that. So the water came in and we got anywhere from the 6 inches to 5.5 feet in our homes. So our home specifically had 24 inches was the minimum. In the front of the home, it was 24 inches. On the back, it was 5.5 feet.
Holy cow.
So we got a significant amount of water in the home. And so, although I was losing it, we were home when it happened. And although I was losing everything, in my mind, I was okay, we have insurance for this. We're going to be okay. I was trying to be positive. We're going to be, I was actually laughing. Not laughing because it was probably some kind of hysteria happening. But during the storm, I was we're going to be fine. We have insurance. I'm going to call insurance. Actually, 3:00 that morning, I messaged my insurance agent. And I was our house just flooded. We had escaped. We got rescued and left. But I was our house is underwater. So what do I do? And she immediately told me contact FEMA. Which later I found out you couldn't do at the time, which we'll explain. Contact your homeowners and contact your flood. So I did. I went online and I, did a claim for all 3 of them at 3:00 in the morning. And I was expecting to get a phone call the next morning. And it didn't happen that way at all.
Do you think it was just because of the abundance of claims that were coming in at the same time? I mean, I feel like not everybody jumped on it like you did at 3 a.m, but I felt like maybe that morning people were starting to call.
Or did FEMA just not give a fuck?
Yeah.
It depends on what you think. I mean, some call me a conspiracy theorist.
I mean, we could look at North Carolina,
yeah.
and in North Carolina, FEMA gave everybody like $750 and said, "Hey, good luck." And then not only that, the California wildfires that are going on right now, Joe Biden just signed something that gave them $770. You lose your entire home, they'll send billions over to Ukraine, but as soon as something happens here domestically, FEMA is unavailable. All funds ran out, and FEMA actually redirected funds to help illegal immigrants, if I'm not mistaken.
They did.
Yeah.
And they put them up in places.
I don't think FEMA gives a fuck under this administration.
When they gave us the $750, it was, I remember, because we're kind of going off track here, but it was during the second storm. It was October 9th or October 10th that it hit my bank account, the $750. And I just like laughed at it. I was like, I should just donate this to a bum because like, what is that going to do for me? But I think they don't give a fuck. I truly think they don't. I think that they are,
at least with this current administration,
they are so backwards. They are not put together. And it's kind of like, we talked about the vaccine injury stuff with me, and we talked about VAERS being so unorganized, and everybody thinks you have protections to report something and they're going to learn from it and save you. People think that about FEMA. And I'm telling, they don't have their shit together at all. It's 5.5 plus hours, 6 hours to even get somebody on the phone. And then when you get them, if you get them on the phone that day, some people are on hold forever. And if you even get them on the phone, you spend 30 seconds on the phone with them and they can't answer anything and you get off the phone. It was the most asinine thing ever. Like, I'm actually lucky that I even got in touch with FEMA. Still to this day, FEMA hasn't paid more than $6,000 for me.
Oh, shit.
We lost like over $400,000 minimum. Our first claim was $260 for the homeowners, and the flood insurance was about $250. So actually, I didn't even add that up yet. It's like $500,000.
So
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, you also hired a public adjuster.
Yeah.
And did they actually help?
Yeah. So we could back up to that now. So I called at 3 a.m, all of the insurance companies, and I realized very quickly, I think I just thought to myself, I'm so used to being screwed over by the government that I was like, this isn't going to go my way. So I immediately called my cousin, who's a home builder down in Cape Coral. They went through Hurricane Ian a couple years ago. And I was like, I need a public adjuster. Or I didn't even know what it was called. I was like, what's that thing, that person that like fights for you?
Public adjuster.
Yeah. And she's like, it's a public adjuster. I'm like, no, I need a private adjuster. And she's like, no, it's called a public adjuster. And so I did. I immediately called who she told me to call. He drove over from the other coast that morning. He was there on day 2 of the hurricane with his team. So all my neighbors at this point are like, why are you hiring a public adjuster? You have to give up 10% of your claim. And I'm like, and you're going to get 50% less than me.
Yeah.
So to give up that 10%, I'm going to fight it from the very beginning. We could talk about later on, like how there are pros and cons to what I did versus what they did. But I still think that having them from the very beginning has worked in my favor, because I haven't necessarily told all my neighbors, but for the longest time, we didn't get any money. And now we've gotten more than they have, at least some of them. Most of them. Some have gotten way more than me, but we've gotten further. So the next day we hired the public adjuster. He came with a team. All my neighbors were like, why are you moving your belongings out into the street? It looked like, do you remember Hurricane Ian?
Yeah.
How the streets were just lined with stuff? That's what our neighborhood like was starting to look like.
I saw it.
But I
drove past it. Like, me and my wife, we drove past it like probably a week after, and we're like, it looks like a war zone. Like,
it truly did.
And then a week later,
I mean, it was
A week
completely.
later, it was 10 times worse.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
but I'm saying like then Milton comes, and
2
now you
weeks
have all
later,
that flying debris.
Yeah. So, but my neighbors were asking me like, why are you moving all this stuff out? Why are you doing this? We started cutting out the walls, drying the walls. I think we had a $33,000 bill for remediation, but I think $10,000 of it was the first hurricane. So we had this team come out that the public adjuster hired, and they had fans and dehumidifiers, and nobody in my neighborhood. And so they all thought I was crazy. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm getting ahead of the game, because your insurance company is going to come out here. They're not going to cover mold, and you're going to get mold if you keep your walls up, because nobody knows this, but mold isn't covered in your insurance policy unless you pay extra for it. And it's not covered if you didn't remediate in time. So all these people were waiting like, well, we don't know what we're going to do. We're going to wait on insurance. I'm like, bitch, you better fucking get those walls down, because if you get mold, they're not going to cover it. We ended up getting mold, and we were the first ones on our street to take our walls out. We had 8 types of mold. But then, so we're drying out, right? We're going through all this. In the meantime, Insurance had still not come out. 2 weeks goes by. That was September 26th. October 9th was the second storm. Insurance had still not come out. So, or flood insurance had still not come out. Homeowners did.
What do you mean come out?
They have to come to your property.
Oh, like
and
an
inspect
inspector.
it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Because they can't just take your word for it. They can't just come and take photos of your home. Like, you can't take your photos.
So an insurance adjuster hadn't come out yet.
Right. My
The
public adjuster had.
But the insurance adjuster, the
Right.
adjuster that works for the insurance company had not come out yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this was a flood. So a lot of people were on social media. You probably saw people saying, like, giving advice. Oh, don't say flood, say water. That's actually inaccurate when it's a storm surge. You want to say flood. You have to say flood because the storm surge is what ruined your house. Milton is the one that brought wind. Helene didn't have wind, if you guys remember that. I mean, for some parts of the suburbs, Milton had issues and Helene had issues, but when it came to wind, but Helene, for us, it was all water. In fact, I was filming the whole thing and I think it only rained like twice. I think there was probably only like 2 rainstorms during that hurricane.
The Helene one. Helene,
Yeah,
right.
it was
Helene,
all water.
Yeah, it was.
It was all-
Milton was wild in my neighborhood.
Yeah, Milton
That
was
one
crazy. Well, so the flood insurance is the one that hadn't come out. So they didn't look at any of the damage. The homeowners came out, and this is where the corruption started.
It's flood. It's not.
And
Water
listen, I've
intrusion,
got nothing
right?
against you if you're a gay guy. So take my next comment to light. But this guy was like a 23-year-old gay guy parading around with his iPad. Yeah, I'm going to take pictures of everything. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. And he's like, there are people out there who have horrible claims and they're fake. And he was just going on and on, like shit talking all of these homeowners in front of me. And here I am with a destroyed home. And he's like up on my roof and he's like tapping the roof with his foot. He's like, your roof is good. And he's like, you have no damage from wind, so you don't need me. And in fact, he tried to tell me that if I retracted the claim, because you know how I put the claim in at 3 a.m., he's like, you need to retract your claim because you don't have any wind damage. And if you retract it, then you won't have a claim on your record. Because if you have claims, insurance is to pay shit. But if you have too many claims, you can't get covered.
Mm-hmm.
So good luck being a homeowner, right? Unless you pay cash and don't cover it.
I'm just curious, which insurance company did you have?
Universal.
Okay, you didn't have Citizens, did you?
No, it's Citizens has actually been paying people out pretty well.
Because, I mean,
Yeah.
I had a hailstorm happen at my house. Citizens came out, boom, replaced the roof like in 2 months.
Yeah, Citizens has been doing really good for my neighbors. Universal, every neighbor that has
And
Universal
actually,
is screwed.
there's I think a law passed within the state of Florida that every home has to be insured regardless of the individual and their insurance claims. My insurance actually went down when I got my roof replaced.
Yeah, it
Wild.
does.
Yeah.
And now it used to be, I think it used to be that your roof had to be replaced within 10 years of selling a home. Now it's like 4 years, I think, which you would know that
I don't know.
more than me. It's like 4 or 5 years, something like that. They changed the law. So the roofs actually do bring the claims down. But
Was your roof good though?
it was good in the beginning. It was good
What
after
did the public
Helene.
adjuster say?
Public adjuster said do what Universal says, because if in the beginning he was like, do what they say because we're not worried about them, we're just worried about flood. You legit don't have damage from wind. A tree didn't fall on your home, your windows aren't blown out, you flooded, so we need to go after the flood insurance company. He's like, so do what they say so that you don't have 2 claims, and if it helps you in the future. And I was like, okay. So
Did you retract?
So I called to retract it. Here's some of the corruption. And they were like, well, you won't get FEMA help if you retract the claim. I said, what do you mean? And they said, you need to show a denial. You cannot get FEMA if you are insured and don't have a denial. So I had to call this guy back, Christian Alessandro was his name. And I was like, dude, I can't retract it. I need a denial. He's like, well, I can do something better for you. I can deny it based on that you had no damage. And it's basically like a retraction. And I was so like in the midst of it, I didn't really understand what he was saying, but he spoke to my public adjuster. My public adjuster even believed him that he had good intentions. FEMA never helped to begin with, so I should have just retracted it in total. But I allowed them to send me a denial stating that there was no damage whatsoever from the wind, which is going to help me in the future. So it's fine now at this point. But fast forward to October 9th, Milton came. House was completely dry before Milton came. All the dehumidifiers had been taken out. Like, house was ready to be remediated. It probably would have cost, I don't know, $100,000 or so to put the house back together. And Milton lifted the roof in my closet on the entire back second story. Water came in from the entire side of the
bash
house.
the public adjuster here, but it kind of seems like you may have hired a public adjuster that didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, and these guys have really, really good experience. But one of the things
and that's why you got to call Daryl James.
yeah.
He's a former guest on our show who was a public adjuster.
Yeah, call him. Don't call my guy. No, if my guy sees this, sorry. But he knows I've actually yelled at them quite a bit. Sorry, I keep kicking you. So where were we?
Roof lifted off by your closet, Hurricane Milton.
So the roof lifted. It didn't come completely off. It just lifted enough for water to come through it during the storm. We had 110 mile an hour winds. No flooding from the bottom, but it came in the windows. It cracked the foundation. It came in through the roof, came in through my closet on the second story. So therefore, it then went in between the first and the second story. There's about this much of flashings and what do they call them?
Faucet.
The thingies that go this way that you run air conditioning through.
HVAC?
No, it's like in between the first and second story. It's just the thickness.
Yeah, okay.
So the water came in through there and the soffits. I think soffits.
Subflooring.
Okay.
Yeah.
It came through there and then it spread. So now our entire ceiling on the first floor was soaked. Water's dripping down. And we evacuated for the second one because the first one I was just so traumatized by. So we go back in 2 days after the second storm. And bless you.
Oh, that was a cough.
Oh.
Thanks, though.
It was a nice cough. My coughs are very excruciating. We came in and we're like, oh my God. So this one is not, I had to call Universal again because this was a wind claim. So I put in another claim to Universal. 2 weeks later, I find out that they assigned me the same dude, Christian Alessandro. Guy comes out with his iPad a month after. So like by this time, by the way, flood had still not been out to my house. Like they still had not come to see the damage. So now I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen with flood? Are they going to deny me? Because now the second hurricane hit and now I have a third claim. And are they all just going to fight with each other? In the meantime, we have cars burning in our neighborhood. The house across the street burns down. Like several houses, a couple streets, like the house, literally my neighbor's house burned down.
Why did it burn down?
Because when you have salt water, this was what they call Category 3 flood. So Category 3 flood is very different than just like a Clearwater Beach flood because it's in the bay and you have salt water, you have feces, you have toxins. It's
oil.
Like oil. It's all, they call it black water. So have you ever heard the term Category 3 water, black water? Anything it touches has to go. You cannot salvage it. And so I was like, what's going to happen now with all of these claims? Are they just going to deny everything? And that's exactly where we're at. I mean, we'll fast forward to that, but that's I'm being denied and they're fighting with each other and the flood insurance didn't get out there in time. So.
And you got the same guy who came back out.
Yeah. And so the same guy gets back on the roof with his same iPad, making his same damn jokes about all the homeowners. And by this time, every neighbor of mine is homeless. I'm cooking fucking hot dogs in my front yard to feed people because there were no restaurants around that. They were all flooded. The Chili's was flooded. All the restaurants were flooded. The bars we went to were flooded. There was no hot food anywhere. You could go inland. You could go over here, Carrollwood or, Land O'Lakes or something. But we were all busy like trying to clean our homes out day in and day out. I had black water all over me every day. I wasn't going to drive 20 minutes to get a lunch at Hooters,
Yeah.
So I used my social media. I love Hooters, by the way. But I used my social media to raise money. And I think we raised about $3,000 or $4,000 and bought a bunch of food. I got a bunch of people to donate and come in. They donated their time to help we have the elderly, the sick, the people who couldn't move their shit out of their house. They couldn't take down the walls. So you've got people coming in, like helping them cut walls, cut drywall, pull, dressers and beds out. And I'm cooking them food every day while I'm going through this myself. So that's what we were going through for a couple weeks and floods still hadn't come out. And Christian Alessandro is up there making jokes on my second story about how now I have damage. He's like, oh, now you have tons of damage. You're going to be fine now. Blah, 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 blah. You're going to be approved now. FEMA still didn't do shit. I applied for FEMA again, still denied on the first, denied now on the second, deny, like all the way down. This is when I got my $750 though.
When we get back, we'll keep going on the story. Thank you for tuning in. This is good. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on all our social media platforms. We'll be right back with Brittany Galvin. All right, guys, and we're back to Happy Hour Holidaze, and we're here with Brittany Galvin, and we were just at the point where this guy is standing on top of the roof, now saying that there's damage.
Yeah.
So now what happens, Britt?
So he tells us, now you have damage. You didn't have it before. Remember tapping his foot. And he's like, so you do, this is going to be smooth for you. And he tells my public adjuster, everything's fine. In the back of our minds, we know that flood still hasn't been out. So I'm like worried that whatever he does is going to mess with our flood because they're not going to overlap. Rightfully so. Look, I'm not out there trying to get money that, extra money to go buy myself a Lamborghini or something. Mm-hmm. I only want what the damages are. And I want to rebuild. This was my husband's dream home. It's a great home. We were never going to sell it. If we ever moved, like our goal was to move to Tennessee one day. We were going to keep it as an Airbnb or a rental and then eventually come back, and have it as investment property. So to us, it was always something very special. I just wanted enough to fix it.
Yeah. And
at this point, I'm thinking, okay, he's saying we're good now. This is good. I went through so many fucking high and lows. Like one day I'd be on my stories telling my followers, he says we're going to be good. I spoke to FEMA today, whatever it was. Yeah. And then the next day I'm like, seriously, it just all fell through. So Christian Alessandro is sitting here telling us everything's going to be great, he's from Universal. He's directly from Universal. So sometimes, not to do a keynote here, sometimes your adjuster from the insurance company doesn't actually work for the insurance company. So they hire third parties. We were told after both hurricanes, I was told after both hurricanes that they had to put out ads to hire over 500 adjusters. And that's not FEMA. FEMA had ads for like 2,000 adjusters. Wow. So they were using third parties to come in. But the fact that Christian worked for Universal was important to me and to my public adjuster because he's like, that means he knows what he's doing. The third party guys are guys that they're hiring who don't have jobs, who are coming off the street, like hasn't had a job for 6 months, needs $23 an hour, and he has no idea what he's doing. He's never done it before, whatever. So this guy, we're like thinking, okay, we're good. And it turns out, we waited, what was it? What's today? The 14th?
Yeah, the 14th.
14th of January. We got a denial from Universal. We hadn't heard from them. They wouldn't respond. Not to us, not to, after Christian came out, not to us, not to the public adjuster. They wouldn't even answer our calls, nothing for months, like a month and a half, maybe. This was right before Christmas, December 23rd, I want to say. So today's the 14th, December 23rd. The hurricane was October 9th, December 23rd. We finally got a denial letter from Universal. They denied us outright. Said that
for the roof or the flood?
It wasn't just the roof. It's all the shit that came from the roof being lifted. You have 8 types of mold now that our house had. The whole ceilings had to be ripped out. The bottom, so from the flood, Helene, the bottom half, anything from like 4 foot down is what they would cover. So they actually don't cover your, these are just some tips and tricks. They don't cover your countertops. So if you ever get flooded and you have to take out your counters, your cabinets, save the fucking countertops because they're not going to cover them. Anything that water did not touch, they're not covering. So we had saved all that. The upper cabinets we hadn't removed. The ceiling wasn't removed. The upper walls weren't removed. None of the bathroom downstairs wasn't removed because it was terrazzo and it was tile. So we were like, okay, that's fine. So after, fast forward to Milton, all that came down. $33,000 in mold remediation, which was from all that water being in there. Then all that bathroom had to come down. The walls upstairs now had to come down. In my closet, the wall had to come down. The roof has to be replaced. The fencing was torn apart. The pool cage was torn apart. Anything that's connected to your home by a bolt, another tip and trick, always connect your shit by a bolt. If you have a shed, put a slab under it. It'll be covered on insurance if it's slab.
Yeah, because if it's not a permanent fixture, it's not covered.
Correct. So if your fence is permanently fixed to it with like bolts, it'll get covered. Your pool cage, if it's permanently fixed to the house, it'll be covered. So ours was supposed to be covered. Complete denial. All that's fucked up. And he says, or in the denial letter, it says that the damage was from the first hurricane, not the second, and that it's covered under flood. So now they're pointing fingers at my flood insurance company, which is Bankers. They still hadn't even come to see us.
So
like,
so Universal is different than your flood insurance
Yeah.
company.
Yeah, it's a home insurance.
Really? So
Yep.
no home insurance company covers flood as well? So you have to
I don't know if they do cover both, but you have to have
Yeah.
two separate ones.
Damn, bro.
Yeah, so now Universal is denying it, saying that it was the first hurricane. Well, remember, we got a denial on the first hurricane because they said there was no damage. So what do you mean the damage is from the first hurricane? So I did what I do, and I got mouthy, and I started talking about it on social media a lot. I was already talking about it a lot, but I started like really
Where's your
calling out.
public adjuster at this point?
I'm yelling at him
Yeah.
a lot.
Yes.
I
would too.
He's calling the insurance company, but you know, a couple things happened during that time too. Like during all this, at one point, the public adjuster, the flood still hadn't come to see us. They didn't come till a month after. And I'm like calling up my public adjuster and I'm like, dude, so we're backtracking now. I'm like, dude, all my neighbors have gotten some kind of advance check. 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. One had gotten like 70,000. We had nothing. So even though I was the first one, remember the beginning of the story? I was the first one with my walls ripped down. I was the first one with my claim out there. We're the only ones sitting there without rebuilding our house. Literally day after day, the streets are lined like it's a war zone. Like the shit is piled up 5-6 feet tall on all those streets. And our house is the only one that absolutely nothing is being done. I am bringing in contractor after contractor. I had probably 15 or 20 people I had come in and quote us. I was lining all that up on my own. I felt like I had to be doing something.
Yeah.
But the public adjuster was like, well, I can't get a hold of your flood insurance. I can't get a hold of them. And at that point, we weren't approved for homeowners, so it wasn't under that. So I decided to call my even though public adjusters say homeowners are not allowed to talk to insurance companies if you hire us. I went rogue. I was like, fuck this. So I called the insurance company, and to prove your point, I got 10 grand out of the
Universal.
out of the bankers, out of the flood, who hadn't even seen us yet. Because after telling the lady my story, I just on her voicemail every day at 5 a.m. I was leaving her voicemail. And I was like, I swear, my husband was like, you're crazy. You're going to get like, my public adjuster was like, please don't say anything stupid, please. And I'm like, what am I going to say that's untrue? Like, we're sitting here without a home and we have 3 kids in 3 different schools. Like, he's still having to work. I'm getting paid to work, but my job knows I'm not doing shit. So it's only a matter of days before I get fired. And I'm just like freaking out. And so I got 10 grand out of them and they didn't. So then I wanted to fire them, but I couldn't. And I'm glad I didn't now, fast forward. But that kind of shit happened a lot. That happened a lot. Like, I called the insurance company over and over and over again and would get things out of them that the public adjuster claimed that they couldn't get.
I think you may need a new career in public adjustment.
Well, it's funny you say that. I actually have like a goal. I was telling all my like followers that this time next year, I want to have some sort of guide built on like how to survive a disaster and losing everything overnight. Like the how-to that nobody tells you. Kind of like that book of like when you get pregnant. What's that book that
I've never had a kid, so
every wife has it. It's like the book
is it
Chicken Soup for the Pregnant whatever.
No, I don't know.
Like all the things that your mother didn't tell you, whatever. You guys
didn't read the baby.
You didn't read the damn book.
From
I watched the YouTube videos.
What of the baby coming out? But yeah, I want to have like a guide for people of things that they didn't tell you about, things that you only find out when you're going through it. And the problem is through this whole process is everybody has an expectation that things are so black and white. They have an expectation. You have insurance, you're going to have coverage. You call this person, you're going to get an answer. You take these steps, you're going to get your money. Maybe it's not what you want, but you're going to, and that is not at all how any of it works. FEMA, we haven't even gotten to fucking FEMA yet. They are a whole nother world.
So the real question is, was it worth it buying a house on the intercoastal in Tampa Bay?
Absolutely not.
No,
I'll never do it again. We're actually moving away from it. We're going to find water. We're compromising, my husband and I. We're going to find water, but it's going to be like a spring-fed ski lake where the house is built up a little higher. Even though lakes don't rise, if it rains, let's just say the world is ending and it's going to rain.
Lakes don't rise.
I mean, they don't rise from a surge.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah, they don't rise from a surge.
From rainfall, they sure do.
Yeah, but you're an idiot if you buy a lake house 10 feet from the lake. You know, we looked at a house like that.
I know. I mean,
we're not buying that fucking house. Nope. My husband's over here. He's here, just so you know, laughing at me. But we're going to compromise. We're going to find a house that we can still have water, but we're far enough away from it, and it's not going to be surgible water, if that's even a word.
yeah.
I will never live on the coast ever again in my life.
Yeah, because the hurricanes don't stop. I mean, we had one of the worst ones this year,
Back to back.
2024, but it doesn't mean next year can't be worse, you know?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
climate change and all that
Oh,
nonsense.
Really? You're going to go there?
No, I was making fun of them.
No. Oh, okay. I'm like, this isn't climate change. Look at the
dude.
skies. They're spraying so much shit. It's only going to get worse.
Have you
Yeah.
seen that? Because I've
It's
seen a
only
lot of
gonna get
it.
worse.
They are literally spraying chemicals in the sky. They are cloud seeding. That
They're
is
cloud
what
seeding
they're
like
doing. I
crazy.
was driving back from Blue Ridge Mountains, Georgia, and I see about 10 planes, and my wife's like, "What's that up there? Is that a UFO?" I'm like, "No, that's just a bunch of motherfucking planes flying around,
Yep.
cloud seeding." And we
Yep.
don't even know what chemicals they're putting in there. First of all, who approved it? Who approved it? Because
Right.
me as a taxpayer, I didn't approve that shit. Did the state of Florida approve it? Because Florida was also doing it. My boy Ronnie D, you got to figure that shit out, man.
Yeah, and they're well aware of it. I mean, states like Tennessee and Texas banned it. So if it's such a conspiracy theory, then why do we have states actually banning it?
Yeah.
You know, why is it a known thing? It's a law that it's banned in Tennessee.
Because Bill Gates is behind it.
You know, so and regardless who's behind it and what, like buying a home on the water when these storms are just going to get worse and worse, they're bringing these storms in these ways. They can't control them once they start, and that's their problem.
Yeah.
They start them, they cause them. Yes, Mother Nature, if you're watching, you think I'm crazy. Mother Nature is there. Is global warming, like, is the earth warming up? Yeah, but don't say that it's from just a natural occurrence.
No.
Like, we are feeding it.
How old was
Feeding
your
it.
house?
The house was built in 62,
Okay.
I think. But we
They're-
had
they're-
just dumped 160 grand into it.
Sure.
For years.
The rest of the homes on that street, what was the average age of those
The
homes?
same.
Yeah. So now, like, what we get now are the building standards where they're saying, hey, now these intercoastal homes need to be built on concrete stilts. The first floor can't be habitable.
Right.
It has to be the second and third. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways around combating storm surge. But I mean, you said it yourself, 1962, right? I mean, that's quite a bit of an old house.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot, like, I don't know how much time we have today. We might have to end up doing a part 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot that we're
Got
going.
8 minutes.
8 minutes. That's all we have. Oh, we're definitely gonna need a part 2, possibly a part 3, because there's a lot of shit that I've learned in this insurance nightmare. You know, one of the things you just brought it up, so let's talk about it for a minute. Fast forward to the fact that we didn't think we were gonna sell it. So now we've sold the home, sold it. I was like, as is. I got to the point where I couldn't handle the trauma anymore. I couldn't handle every day walking and seeing a broken house, fighting these insurance companies, like not knowing what our future was going to hold, the ups and downs, because all of that aside, all these people fixing their homes right now are going to be fucked.
Yeah, if you're
Because-
fixing it the same way, I mean,
It's
Not
still
just
an old
that.
home.
Yeah.
It's not just
Yeah.
that. It's the 50% rule.
oh
So
yeah, the 50%.
our area
yeah.
was declared, when you talk about raising a house, our area was declared. So our neighborhood and some of the areas around us were declared, I forget what they call it, like emergency something, but based on the county, we all got letters on our door and they were taped up on our door. People were walking around, the county was walking around taping them up.
What was it saying?
And it was saying that in our neighborhood, we have to abide by the 50% rule. So if you permit and if you have enough damage that it is more than 50% of your dwelling, so it's not 50% of what the house is worth.
You have
It's
to
not
tear it
50%
down?
of everything. You have to tear it down or raise it up. And it has to be raised 12 feet. Guess what insurance doesn't cover? Raising your fucking house. So it doesn't matter if you even get the money to fix it. Then you got to spend $400K. If you're lucky, you'll find someone for $200. Let's just be conservative.
Yeah.
Then you have to lift your house for $200 to $400K and you have to pay for it. Or tear it down and rebuild. Have you looked at the cost of rebuilding a home today? It's like
$190 a
$250
square.
Oh no, tell me where you found that. It's like $250 a square. So good luck, building another home on the land. Or you could do where you make the first story, a garage.
Yeah, and then
Build
you
on the second, but I had a foundation in it. When I tell you I've had everybody come out because I was like trying to get shit done. I had an engineer and a foundation company come out. And what they have to do is they have to drill in to the corners of your home, dig down deep and
piers.
pour it. Yeah. That alone is another 100+ grand.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to do that in order to build the foundation for it to withstand the second story. So I do have some neighbors that are doing that. The one that burned down is getting a brand new house. That, to our conversation earlier, her house burned down. At least, if you want to throw an at least out there, at least she's going to have no fight with insurance.
Well, yeah, because it's completely
Actually, I
demolished.
take that back. Flood is fighting her because she had damage from the flood. So now does she get that money, or is insurance going to take over on the fire? Regardless, though, she's getting a brand new home.
Well, she still got flooded. from the first hurricane.
Right. So she deserves that money because it took out her equity. Yeah. So you've got some people tearing down altogether. You've got some lifting, some crazy ass people. I don't know where they come up with that money, 400 grand to lift their house. You've got some doing that. And you've got some like me that decided, I'm out. I'm out. Sold as is. I'm out. So an investor bought our home.
Besides many trades of saying that Brittany could be a public adjuster, she could also be a realtor.
I posted that shit on Facebook, on my social media.
Damn. Got that shit sold.
Yeah. You know what? And we lost some equity, but what you told me was really important though. You said that you did the math and the research, and based on the coastal and intercoastal homes, what we were seeing was that by selling them as is versus fixing them and selling them, it was only about a 20% difference. So if I was going to sell my home for 1.1 million, for example, and I had to fix it, and insurance is playing these games. So who knows how long I'm going to pay a mortgage and sit in a house like this, pay 10 grand a month to live in an Airbnb or live in an RV. People are trying to kill themselves living in these RVs with each other. All my neighbors are in RVs. You do all that, you fix it up. Let's just say you get 200 grand, 250 grand to fix it up. And then you could sell it. I couldn't sell it for 1.1 now. Yeah. I could probably sell it for 850.
Yeah, because the market also dropped too, like the market adjustment. We've seen a 20, 30%, decrease in values,
Right.
So, it wasn't a good time for that either.
So if I did all that and went through all that trauma to fix it up, and I got that amount of money to fix it up and I sell it for 850, versus if I fight the insurance companies on the back end, move on with our lives, find a way to survive, maybe get 200 out of it, not 250, but I could sell it for 655. Why the fuck wouldn't I? Yeah. It's the same amount of money.
Or even break even.
Or break even, get me out of this situation.
Yeah.
So that's what my husband and I decided to do. We were like, we are out. We're done. This is not, we're still stressed. We're still homeless right now, but we are, as you know, actively looking and we will rebuild. But
can you tell us about your husband?
Yeah, what do you want to know?
What does he do for a living?
Makes me happy.
Oh, hey.
He's a professional gambler. The slot machine.
I probably shouldn't tell you what he does because all the comments I've made and all the cursing I make, but he's a first responder, as you know.
That's right, BG. We won't say his name though.
We'll just say be sleazy.
Be
sleazy.
But no, yeah,
we got 3 minutes here.
All right. Well, Brittany, do you have anything you want to tell the audience? Just like some, little nugget of advice or anything you want to end it with?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuggets. I definitely think we need to have a part 2 because we need to go into FEMA. And I wish I brought the book to kind of just show you a physical, but I went to Walgreens when we had nothing and we had just lost everything. And I bought a little journal. And I just started writing everything down, every person I spoke to, every policy number, every time I called, the time that I called, who I called. I kept a record of everything. I kept every receipt for everything I purchased, everything I bought, any moving, anything we saved. I had this journal that I put everything in. I think that's really important for people to do. I think that we would have been better off had I canvassed my house ahead of time. I know this sounds crazy, but serial numbers on all of your stuff should be written down when you buy it. When
water heaters, microwaves,
everything, your vacuum, everything, because I had to make a spreadsheet that took me well over a month. I was killing myself over it. Literally every day, all night, I'm up on the spreadsheet on the computer trying to Google based off of pictures of our rubble, and I also said, I'm going to come up with that. I don't want someone to steal my idea. I don't know if you do, but I want an app where as you buy things, you can put in what you buy and scan it, and it registers in the app of all your belongings, where it came from, serial number, how much it costs. So that way, if you ever have a disaster, you just open up your app and you can hand it to your insurance company.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Damn
it. Sign an NDA. All you guys out there.
Yeah. Seriously, I'll know. But I think that something like that is really important too. I also think it's okay to get a rental. Like, it's okay. You don't have to live with family. You don't have to live with people right away. We have moved 5 times since the hurricanes.
If you have the financial means to do so.
Yeah, if you have the financial means to do so, it's okay. A lot of people are like, oh, I was that person. Like, I need to save the money. I need to save it. But for your marriage sake and for your children, you need your privacy. And that's just like it's not a nugget per se. It's just some advice.
Yeah.
All the people going through the fires, it's okay. You're gonna be with people right away, but in the end, it's okay to spend a little money to have your privacy because you're gonna go through a lot of grief. And you're going to go through a lot of emotions and shit's going to be really hard and you need your space. Like, I think that's really important.
Yeah. I mean, and another thing is 30 seconds. All right. Well, we really appreciate Brittany coming on. Thank you so much. We'll definitely have a part 2 to continue educating everybody because these hurricanes are not going to stop in our area. I mean, they're going to continue to come and we need to be prepared. You need to know what to do when something like this happens.
Especially on FEMA.
Yeah, on FEMA. I mean,
I'm harping on that because there's a lot there we didn't talk about.
And I can't wait for January 20th.
What do we have? How many days do we have? 6 days.
6 days.
6 days.
Yeah. Thanks for watching Happy Hour Holidaze. Make sure you like and comment and subscribe all our social media platforms and tune in for another episode next Thursday. Thank you. Have a good one.